Welcome to the Sarah Finkelstein Show, where the next 10 minutes can change your life. Also on Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. Here's Sarah.
You know, most people don't want to talk about this topic, but it is important enough to discuss. So, how will you cover the high costs of long-term care? There's a few ways that you can do that. And the probability of needing long-term care, as I've said before, is 70% of people over the age of 65 will need long-term care at some point. And excuse me, the probability is higher and higher the longer we live, because people are living into their 90s and even into their 100s. So the longer we live, the greater the chance is that we will need long-term care. Okay, so here are the ways that you can cover the high cost, and I mean the cost of long-term care is high. Private long-term care insurance is one way, which has been around over 30 or 40 years. I have one of those policies myself, and in the 20 plus years that I've had the policy, I've had several rate increases. Kind of works like homeowners insurance or auto insurance. You can expect rate increases along the way. Another way that you can cover the high cost of long-term care is if you're lucky and you have a wealthy relative who can help you out in a pinch. Also, another way is there are government programs. For example, if you qualify for the Veterans Administration Aid and Attendance Program, that will provide some money to pay for the cost of care. Life insurance and annuities can also cover some or all of that cost of care. And Medicaid. So currently there are 4.4 million Americans receiving some form of assistance through Medicaid for long-term care. You may be aware that Medicaid covers you or your loved one in a nursing home at 100% of the cost, as long as you qualify for Medicaid, and there are income and asset qualifications. But did you know that Medicaid can also cover some of the cost in assisted living? Yes, it's called Medicaid waiver. And depending upon the state that your loved one resides in, would determine how much that Medicaid waiver would provide. Maybe it's $1,500 a month. Maybe it's $1,900 a month. Or I've even seen an article that I'm going to be sharing with you, $3,000 a month. So it doesn't cover all of the costs of the assisted living, but it provides some funding for that cost of care. So I just came across this article in the Washington Post. And the title of this article, you could certainly Google it. Assisted living homes are rejecting Medicaid and evicting seniors. This was going back to April 6, 2023. There was this long article, and I'll share it with you. So it starts out talking about a particular lady. Her name is Shirley Hulse, 91 years old. She was evicted from her assisted living community after having been a resident for 4 years. She was one of 15 residents that were evicted from this particular community in Wisconsin after the facility stopped accepting payment from a state-sponsored Medicaid program. Now, can you imagine being in your 90s, you're accustomed to your Medicaid, assisted living community that you've been living at for 4 years, and all of a sudden you get evicted. It's traumatic. to say the least. Federal law protects Medicaid beneficiaries in nursing homes from eviction. Again, I'll say it again. Federal law protects Medicaid beneficiaries in nursing homes from eviction. So if your loved one is in a nursing home and it's getting paid for through Medicaid, they do not need to worry about getting evicted. However, the laws are different when it comes to assisted living communities. The law does not protect residents of assisted living communities. Okay, buyer beware. And in this article, it states senior care is crushingly expensive, and baby boomers are not ready. That's right. Unfortunately, most baby boomers are not planning for their future need for long-term care. And then what happens when they're not prepared? They typically will use up all the money that they have saved in their retirement portfolio to pay for their or their loved one's care. Nationally, state ombudsman programs for long-term care received 3,265 complaints related to evictions from assisted living communities in 2020. Now, some of those evictions might have to do with maybe the community could no longer take care of the individual. Maybe their needs became too great for that particular community. So that might be a reason for the eviction. But the other reason for the eviction might be that the community stopped accepting Medicaid waiver as a form of paying for their care. Getting back to our 91-year-old, after a stressful, I underline stressful search, Holtz's family moved her to an assisted living that still honors state Medicaid. The industry blames evictions on insufficient Medicaid funding. One assisted living community with the new year said the following: with the new year comes necessary changes. I'm just reading from the article. Karen Bateman, Chief Operating Officer of Vero Beach, Florida-based Harbor Retirement Associates, Harbor Chase of Shorewood's parent company, wrote in a 3-paragraph letter to residents on January 6 that informed them that the facility would no longer accept Medicaid. And quotes, "Our 60-day notice of Medicaid termination gives you time to plan accordingly." So hopefully, if you find yourself in this situation, 60 days will be sufficient for you to find an alternatives. Keep in mind that facilities may have to restrict limits on the number of beds that they designate as Medicaid eligible, or they can back out of state contracts, state Medicaid contracts completely. So if your loved one is in a community and they are receiving Medicaid, just be aware that it could change down the road. Hopefully it won't, but it could happen to your loved one. Also, very importantly, is experts say that moving elderly people out of familiar surroundings can induce a condition called transfer trauma, and that will accelerate decline. In Shirley's case, her relatives detected rapid changes after the eviction, said her daughter. Her mother lost 15 pounds and quickly stopped using her walker. Unfortunately, 3 weeks after moving her out of her older community into the new community, she passed away. So at those older ages, we're not as strong as we used to be in our 50s and 60s. So a decline may happen quickly, unfortunately. My suggestion to you, keep in mind that all decisions have costs. When you decide to get that fancy car, there's a cost attached. When you decide to go out there and splurge and buy a $2,000 handbag, that has a cost involved. And it's very interesting because it seems obvious to me that people have the money for the things that they want. They find a way to get the things that they want, but they may not find the money for the things that they truly need. So it's important to deal with facts and figures. I do recommend that you talk to your family members because, again, long-term care is a family affair. Create a plan to deal with the potential future need of needing care. And of course, if you need my help, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to provide you with information, articles, some solutions to the situation. But again, everything does have a cost. When you decide to protect yourself, there is a cost involved. Just like when you decide not to protect yourself, there's a cost involved, but it'll be in the future and probably a much, much higher number than planning in advance. So I enjoy working and helping Americans enjoy financial peace of mind. And in order to get financial peace of mind, guess what? You do have to plan. So I want to thank Tony at TRC Voiceovers for the fine work on my Sarah Finkelstein show.
Knowledge is power, but only when you implement what you've learned to your own benefit. Tune in next time for even more powerful tips on the Sarah Finkelstein Show.